partaking in the glory of God. And we are looking at John chapter 11. I'm not going to read the whole word, scripture, but we're going to look at the scriptures. And this year, at the very beginning of this year, right in the early morning of this year, we spent the night with our eldest daughter, having watched the fireworks, the splendor of it and the grandeur of it. And the following day, I got up early as I would, and I just went out into the balcony to spend time with the Lord. And there was a thick fog. A thick fog. But out of that fog came a bright, shining light. It was not an epiphany, but it was the sun, the natural sun. And God began to minister to me. The Spirit of God began to speak to me and asked me to read Isaiah 60, which says, "Rise, shine, your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." And he began to minister to me through that whole chapter. It's an awesome chapter, and I will encourage you to read that, because that is the life of a new covenant believer. That in the midst of thick darkness, you see, light cannot shine or light cannot be visible unless there's darkness. In the midst of thick darkness, it says in Isaiah chapter 60. And you wonder what is this darkness? And we all know that darkness represents evil. But in the midst of thick darkness, your light will shine. And this is the reality that we need to learn to live in. On one side, we hear these awesome, awful stories. And especially, it becomes more awful when we're subjectively involved with family. And we then tend to miss our focus, and our perception of things become a little bit blurred because family is involved. And that is all understandable, but where do we, as God's expression, God's human expression on earth, stand in all this? And I think it is in the word glory. In the word glory. And there's been a lot of teaching on the word glory. There's been a lot of teaching even in the last few years about the glory of God. And all of them are amazing teachings. They teach of the splendor, they teach of the majesty, they teach of the greatness and the power. They teach of all of that, which is true. In fact, Moses in Exodus 34 and verse 20, he says, "Show me your glory." And he says, if you don't go before me, I will not go. If your presence doesn't go before me. And when Moses asks him to show him, now, right at the top of the passage, it says that, and God told Moses, I'm going to send you my angel who will go before you. And Moses is saying, in other words, I don't want an angel, I want you.
Yeah.
I want you. And unless your presence goes before me. You know why? Because it's the presence of God, the character, the nature of God. And so when the people of Israel saw the mounting up of the floodwaters of Jordan, what God wanted them to do is to step into the waters and cross over, keeping their eyes on the covenant, the Ark of the Covenant. Because the presence of God goes before us. The glory of God goes before us. So Jesus told his disciples, tell them that I will go before you. And it's always, he's going before us. He's always in front of us. And all we have to do is to keep our eyes on him. But we get distracted with all the things that are happening around us. And so I thought, I've been going through this as we began this year, and God was giving me some ways in which you and I can walk through 2017 without being affected with the other side of reality. So what is glory? Well, the splendor, the majesty, the power, and all of that. That's true. And people have spoken about gold dust coming upon them and the amazing presence of God visiting them with cloud and all of that. And that is, I believe all that. But as I've studied the word glory, I've seen another angle to that from the Hebrew word, from the word and the Greek. And very simply it means this: opinion, view, and reality. That's what glory means. Opinion, view, and reality as God sees. And it removes the pressure from people who are not receiving the gold dust, who are not receiving miraculous manifestations of God, into a very simple life, that way you can live in His glory 24/7. And if you learn that way, and if you look at John chapter 11, you would see a reality. The reality is that people come and tell Jesus that his friend Lazarus is dead. He's sick. First of all, sick. Are you good? Comes and tells he's sick. Now, you would expect any pastor with a pastoral heart, any man with a pastoral heart, to want to get to this person, especially if he's a close friend, right? Would want to get to this person as quick as possible. But not Jesus. There must be something about this man that teaches us about seeing reality, the physical aspect of it, through the reality of God. And so he comes and he talks to his disciples, and suddenly he gets the word. He took 4 days, right? You call your pastor and you say, please go and pray for this person, or please. And then the pastor says, yeah, I know. And the worst thing is if this guy dies and the pastor has to knock on. Hello?
Yes.
Are you understanding? I'm putting it into very normal context and day-to-day context. And what would and you will see their reaction as we look in the scriptures. But Jesus said this. He says, it's amazing, when he receives the word that Lazarus has died, and the disciples say he's dead, Jesus says he's not dead. He's asleep. Do you know why? Because the reality from God is that no man will die. No man actually dies. Because even after death, after the physical aspect of death, they will live. Because man is a spirit being. It only depends on where he chooses to live his everlasting life. But he will live. And Jesus knows this. Because Jesus moved in the reality of God. He saw things from God's perspective. From his perspective. He viewed things as God views them. His Father. And he says, I will not do anything. John 5:19. I will not do anything until I see what my Father does. In other words, his eyes were constantly kept on God's opinion and view. And he didn't move his eyes away from that reality. Are you with me? Are you understanding this? And so he says he's asleep. And then the disciples can't understand this. And then he puts in a little spanner into there and he says, no, he's dead. Right? I want you to know he's dead. Because they misunderstood what he meant by sleep. And he said, you know what? Physically he's dead. But I'm glad for your sake. Now listen to his words. This is amazing. This is Jesus. He's saying, I am glad for your sake that I was not there when he was sick. Why? Because I am going to bring about a glory that is far greater than healing of man. Hello?
Yeah.
Are you with me?
Yes.
When we look at problems, when we look at difficulties, when we look at the realities that face us, and these are realities, right? Sickness is a reality. Death is a reality. You cannot deny them. The fires that have been burning there are reality. The problems that nations face are realities. How do you perceive them? How do I perceive them? Do we get subjectively involved in it and begin to complain, murmur, grumble, or feel bad about this? Or feel angry? Now Jesus got subjectively involved and he wept. But he did not weep over the fact that his friend was dead. He wept that his friend was caught by the reality of the physical death. But he knew he was there. That's it. So now he comes. And the first thing that Mary says, the one who sat at his feet, in verse 21, the first thing she says, if you had been, my brother would not have died. 10 verses down the line in 32, Martha now repeats it. Hello? Now, earlier on, he tells the disciples this. He says, are there not 12? Let's look at verse 9. Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the light, he does not stumble. Can you see what Jesus is talking about? Light reflects knowledge and wisdom and a reality that is different to the reality of darkness. And if you walk in this light, he's saying, you'll never stumble. And the problem with us is we get caught up in the darkness. Not realizing what Isaiah said in 63 and verse 3. In the midst of thick darkness, your light will shine. And if you walk in that light, you will not stumble. Are you understanding this? And Jesus would say, I'm the light. Hey, I'm the light. And if you keep your eyes on me and if you walk in me, you will not stumble at these things that are happening around you. Because even if the fires come around you and the lions roar, I will be with you and I'll save you. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. You remember the story? They were thrown into the fire. And the fire was asked to be heated 7 times more. And the ones who caused the fire, listen to what I'm saying, the ones who caused the fire got burned.
Yeah.
I hope you understand what I said just now. But the ones who were in the midst of the fire, not even a hair. Go back, take a strand of hair and burn it. And see this and get the smell. Not even a strand of hair got burned. Amazing.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they're the fourth person in the fire. One like the Son of Man. In your fire, He is there. And you will not be put out. That's the reality that you and I need to keep looking at. Not the reality that is caused by darkness. Now He comes and He's having a conversation now with Martha. Because Martha says, hey, listen, if you were here, my brother wouldn't have died. And Jesus says to her, your brother will rise. I know he will rise in the last days. But Jesus says this, I am the resurrection. I am the reality of the resurrected life. Are you with me?
Yep.
If you believe in me, you will not die. I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this conversation. He says, if you believe in me. Martha said, I know that he will rise. Verse 24. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. Now listen. And whoever lives, are you ready? And whoever lives and believes in me shall what? Shall what?
Never die.
Never die. Then he asks her the question, do you believe in this? Do you know why? Because he wants us to live in his reality. I am. He wants us to live in the I am. Not in the I will be. Are you understanding this? I know my brother is going to live. He will be. Hey, listen, I am. Are you ready to live in the now of my reality? In the midst of what you see around you. And it was stinking 4 days. And now he goes to the tomb, and then, this is amazing, now the people take up the chant. And they say, is he crying because his friend has died? If he had only come before. Now they take up the chant. So it's not only family, it's others around us that can create confusion and can create doubt and create a subjective feeling within us so that then we don't respond to the reality.
Yeah.
Like Habakkuk. He saw the reality, evil coming against his people in chapter 1 of Habakkuk. And he couldn't understand this whole thing. And he says, God, how can you be so pure, allow evil to come against your people? Please remember this. Always remember this principle. In the midst of your questions, God will remain silent. He will never answer. Did he answer Job? Do you know why? Because his silence motivates us to do something, to draw close to him. Don't expect him to talk and answer your questions. Why, Lord? How come? What is this? Job did the same thing with his friends. And then finally God comes and says, hey, gird up your loins and be a man. I want to talk to you. And he now asks the question, where are you? And he begins to bring his reality, his perspective, his understanding of life. And then Job ends up by saying, all this time, I've only heard, in verse 38, chapter 38, I've only heard, but now I see. Same type of book. Chapter 2 of Habakkuk. I will go and watch and wait. And as he watches and waits, he now begins to have a revelation. First of all, the just shall live by faith. Verse 4. The just shall live by faith. Because faith is the evidence of things hoped for and that which is unseen. So the just shall live by faith. The righteous shall live by faith. And now he makes this amazing proclamation in verse 14 of chapter 2. The earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of God as the waters covers the sea. Hello? What is the language that comes out of us in the midst of darkness? Now the language that came out of God, the voice that came out of God was, let there be light. Do we speak God's language? And ought we not to speak God's language? We ought. And now Jesus says this, I am the resurrection and life. Why could Jesus say, I am the resurrection and life? Because he is linked to the very source of life, his Father. And he is now speaking because he's God's human expression on earth. He's the very image of God. And he's speaking what God would have spoken. And he's saying, I'm the resurrection, you believe in me. And then in verse 40 is even better. He says, did not I say to you? Did not I say to you? If you believe, chapter 11 verse 40 is amazing. Did not I say to you, if you believe, you will see the what? The glory. He's telling Martha this. But read the story and see. He never told her that. In terms of words. But in terms of the reality, this is what he said. You believe in me? Your brother will. That's the glory. So which glory do we live in? Glory is what? Reality, opinion, view. Whose view do we live in? Are you going to live in your view? In your opinion? In my opinion? In somebody else's authority? By living in God's. We are called to live according to his view of any situation. And that's what faith is about. And when you and I learn to live and learn to understand his realities, they overshadow every other. And we can live in his glory 24/7. So, a blind man, Mark chapter 10, a blind man, blind Bartimaeus, comes to Jesus, or he's dead. Listen to the story, right? And he wants to be healed. Why? Because he heard of Jesus. How does faith come? By hearing. He heard of Jesus, so he comes and he positions himself and he shouts, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy upon me. And the crowd, you know what the crowd does? They hush him. Hey, come on. He's a beggar. Come on. He doesn't stop there. He doesn't stop. He shouts all the more. And the most beautiful sentence is written there. And Jesus stopped. You see, blind Bartimaeus began to live in the reality of God's opinion of him. Read the story, it's beautiful. He began to live in the reality of God's opinion of him. And what is God's opinion of him? That he's not a beggar, that he's not blind, It is not the will of God for anyone to be a beggar. It's not the will of God for anyone to suffer. It's not the will of God, as people teach, that suffering is a means to bring us to understand God's ways. No, beloved. That is their opinion and view and reality, but not the opinion, view and reality of God, the Father, who ever wants us to have abundant life. That's what He came for. That you may have life and life more abundantly. Zoe, which means a qualitative life. It's not the will of God that you be sick. Man, if it was the will of God that people get sick, Jesus wouldn't have healed people, because He would have been acting against the will of God. But we read in Acts 10:38 that Jesus, anointed of the Holy Spirit, anointed of God, went about doing good, healing all who were oppressed of the devil. How dare we insult the very thing that God came in Jesus to undo by saying, no, it is the will of God that people should be sick. It's the will of God that, well, serves Him right. So blind Bartimaeus knew that it's not the will of God for him to be a beggar. And he seeks the one who can now bring him out of it. And that's why he shouts even more. He doesn't allow the words of people to silence him. And then he's brought before Jesus. Go back and read the words. And Jesus says this. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? If you read the original in the Greek, it means this. What is it you regard that I can do for you? What is it that you regard that I can do for you? What is your reality about me doing something for you? And he says this. Now watch this, right? Before he goes to Jesus, read the story, it's beautiful. He removes his garments. Because beggars those days had a particular garment, just like a leper, to say they're a beggar. It was like an official stigma. Okay? You know what he does? He knows that God's reality for him is this is not what I've been created to do. And he removes it. And he runs to Jesus. And then Jesus says, what do you regard that I can do for you? And he says, I want to see. What is your opinion of God that He can do for you? He can heal you. He says, let it be according to your faith. Go. Beloved, when your opinion of God is aligned with His opinion, things take place. Miracles take place. Never allow your circumstances, never allow your reality to cloud your opinion of God. That is sin. You want to know what sin is? Sin is missing the mark. And all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. That's not about sin in terms of action and you, if you don't believe in God, going to hell. That's about a daily consequence that takes place in our life. That if we miss the mark, what is the mark? If we miss His opinion, then we fall short of His opinion, of His reality. And so it is our responsibility, therefore, with the Holy Spirit who has come to lead us into all truth, to listen to His opinion and to walk in His opinion. Hello? Amen. To walk in His view, to view life as He viewed. And what is His view? The earth shall be what? Filled with the knowledge of the reality of God. That's his opinion. And I came to give it to you. And no, people want to bring a different. Turn to John chapter 9 if you don't mind. People still want to define and describe life. They want to bring their opinion, their philosophy, their reality. And so there is another blind man. And the disciples ask him the question, did he or his parents? You know why? Because we have this thing about generational curses. Hey, they don't belong to the Word of God. My father got this, therefore I also have this. And the first thing that the doctors do, listen, doctor's opinion, not God's opinion, right? Are you ready? Doctor's opinion. And they trace the opinion, the history. Father had cancer, you can. He's already condemned. Father, mother has diabetes, therefore you'll also have diabetes. Already condemned. But the Spirit of the Lord has anointed me to preach what? Good news. And the good news is that you're free from the curse of the Lord. You're free from the curse of disobedience. Why? Because Jesus said, neither this man nor him, but that the works of God may be manifest. Have you with me? Because God's opinion for you and for me is not that you and I should be blind, that you and I should be sick, that you and I should be trapped in the poverty and the problems of life and constantly have problems on our back. And it becomes our companion.
Yep.
Becomes our friend. I've got to live with this. Have you heard that statement?
Yep.
I have to live with this. No. That's not God's opinion. When He says, I have redeemed you, it means He has redeemed you. He's taken you out. He's paid a very costly price. If you believe, you will see the glory of God. And having made mention of that, He tells this blind man, now watch this. Go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam. 70 steps down, a blind man is being asked to go. But he goes because he knows God's reality is for me to be seen. And he comes back. Are you with me? Hello? Are you with me? Yeah. And on he goes. The reality of God as compared to how we think. If you read Matthew chapter 9, 8 and 9, you would see how this man comes and says, oh, my daughter is sick. And then after a little while, because he's delayed through another operation of a lady touching him, the people come and say, don't bother the master, your daughter is dead. Now Jesus turns around and says, only believe. Now he walks into the house and guess who is there? All these mourners. All these false crocodile tear mourners. In Sri Lanka, you actually pay for some of them to come and cry. I'm not joking. Well, we've got a business like that running. And especially when the man has been you know what. And they come and they cry and they say, oh, how can it be? A good man has left us. And they cry and they shout. They rip them. They don't even know him. Because they're professional mourners. You know, within the church we've got professional mourners who all the time mourning and grumbling. There's not 1 ounce of appreciation. We've got professional mourners amongst wives, professional mourners amongst husbands, professional mourners amongst children. Not 1 ounce of appreciation. Professional mourners amongst workers. Oh, they come and moan to me and they say, my boss is a terrible guy and this and that. Well, which reality are we caught in? What the boss does to squeeze us? What the husband does to belittle us? What the wife does to nag? Which is like a dripping water from the ceiling. You don't know when it'll come. That's what it means there. It's the dripping water. The proverb speaks of the nagging of a wife is like this water coming. You know what it means? It's torture. You know what it means? Because the water goes and gets seeped in to a tarmac roof. It's covered there. And now it comes. And you're waiting for the next one. You don't know when it'll come. When you least expect it. Another nag. It's far better to live, it says, on the rooftop than with a wife who nags. Amen? Because the reality, our paradigm, you know what a paradigm is? We have models. Paradigm is a model of life where we look to and we say, oh, the doctor told me, therefore it has to be. That's a paradigm. That's a model. That's a view. That's an opinion. We need to shift our paradigm.
Amen.
And we need to perceive things as God sees things. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. Beloved, you have the DNA, I have the DNA of the Creator. And I can create my world as I want it to be. Because God wants me to live in the abundance of life. In the resurrection life. I am the resurrection and the life. And I'm going to live in that. You're going to live in that. If you learn to believe. It says, believe and you will see the what? You will see my reality coming into your life. And what is my view and opinion of you? That you are a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar person called out of darkness into His marvelous light. And if you walk in the light, you will never stumble. Amen?
Amen.
We'll continue this series because it's important for us to recognize how to shift our perception in the Spirit through the Word of God. And I promise you, your life will never be the same again. I know because it changed me.
Yeah.
I belong to the poorest of the poor. And I always had a poverty mentality. I was rejected. And I always felt that people are, walk into a room and people are talking about something else, I think they're talking about me. That's a sign of rejection. And I had so many drawbacks. You see, when I began to perceive Psalm 119 verse 130, at the entrance of His word brings what? Light. Revelation. Glory. Making wise the simple. As that began to unfold in me, today my children walk in the riches of God. Not in the poverty of God. Amen. When I had nothing, when Savi and I were, it's amazing if I tell you the stories. We sent our children to the best without anything. What they were studying and where they were studying compared to what we were receiving salary-wise was crazy. But you see, if I belong to the richest of richest, my father, he doesn't own a cattle on 1,000 hills, he owns all. Are you with me? He owns everything. That's my father. And He provides not according to my need, according to His riches in glory, according to His reality. His reality is heaven cannot be empty. I'll give Him everything. Hello?
Yeah.
That's how we walk, beloved. So my plea, my urgent cry in the grace of God is to stop looking at your reality. Stop looking at what is happening around you and start looking at in you, where God has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. It can be the worst of the times. Psalm 139, you go to the lowest of lowest, I am there. You rise up to the highest of highest, I am there. Oh, He's awesome. He's the God of peace.
Yes.
Amen?
Amen.
Bless you. Have a magnificent week in the reality of God, 24/7.
Awesome.